Welcome to Archive Vault, where we explore declassified records, hidden histories, and state-level investigations. Please note, some illustrative narration is AI-generated for storytelling purposes. All content is educational and documentary-based. The Vanishing of Roanoke. The year was 1587. The English settlers arrive on Roanoke Island, a small, windswept strip of land off the coast of what we now call North Carolina. About 115 souls, men, women, children, full of hope. They come to build a new life, a new world. Governor John White leads them. Tools, seeds, livestock, homes to build, gardens to plant, a future to claim. They work, they plan, they dream. But fate has other plans. White must return to England for supplies, and while he is away, the world changes. England is at war with Spain. Ships are scarce. His return is delayed. 3 long years pass. When he finally comes back, the colony is gone. Every house is empty, every garden untended. No bodies, no fire, no evidence of struggle, just silence. Only one clue, carved into a post, CROATOAN. Nearby, a tree bears the letters CRO. No cross, no sign of distress. Just a word that will haunt history. For historians, it suggests relocation to CROATOAN Island. For storytellers, it becomes something else. A whisper, a spell, a key to the unexplained. Legends tell of pale children on misty beaches, shadows moving against the moonlight, lights that dance across the sand, voices that carry on the wind. Some say the word itself holds power, calling the lost near or sending them away. Archaeology gives hints, not answers. Pottery, metal hooks, gun flints, evidence of English presence inland or among local tribes. DNA studies try to trace descendants. Nothing conclusive, the mystery remains. Local folklore fills the silence. Ghostly lights, whispered voices, children glimpsed in the fog. Stories passed from generation to generation. They imagine the settlers transformed, absorbed into the world around them, or into the communities of CROATOAN Island. Never gone. Even Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World, becomes part of the legend. Tales suggest she survived, or that others survived among native communities. Sightings of pale children continue for generations. And through it all, the word CROATOAN remains. A single word, the final mark of human presence, a symbol of disappearance, of mystery. The lost colony of Roanoke vanished, but the story did not. It lives in whispers, shadows, legends, and the silence between the evidence. We begin not with answers, but with absence. We begin with hope, with disappearance, with a word carved in wood that still calls to us, CROATOAN. When Governor John White returned to Roanoke in 1590, he walked through a ghost town. The homes stood, but they were empty. The fences, the gardens, even the fortifications, all abandoned. No signs of a struggle, no bones, no blood, just silence. The word CROATOAN carved into a post was the only trace of human presence. White looked to the skies. He studied the landscape. Nearby rivers and the sound of the ocean whispered secrets that could not be grasped. For White, the clue suggested the settlers had moved south. CROATOAN Island, home to a native tribe known to be friendly, was within reach. But he could not reach it. Storms and rough seas forced him back. By the time he tried again, the trail was cold. And yet the story did not end there. Local lore began to breathe life into the emptiness. Along the Outer Banks, people spoke of strange lights at night. They called them Roanoke lanterns. Pale figures were glimpsed among the fog. Children, adults. Shadows that moved too quickly to be human. Some tales say that those who whispered the word CROATOAN along the dunes could feel the lost colonists nearby. A presence, a breath on the neck, a ripple across the marshes. The word was not just a clue, it became a signal, a key. Archaeology whispers another story. On CROATOAN Island, on Hatteras, shards of pottery appear. Fragments of tools, nails, hooks. Evidence of life, of settlement, of adaptation. Some items clearly belong to the English, some to the native communities. Did the settlers integrate? Did they survive through union and assimilation? Perhaps. Even the local tribes preserve whispers of these newcomers. Stories passed in oral history told of pale strangers appearing among them. Some say these strangers carried the word CROATOAN in their minds. Not just written, but remembered. And sometimes, just sometimes, the settlers are said to return as visions, appearing at night near the sounds of rivers and the ocean. Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World, becomes more than a historical figure in these tales. She is a symbol, a living echo. Sightings of children matching her description persisted for decades. Pale, fair-haired, sometimes silent, sometimes whispering words nobody understood. Words like CROATOAN. Some tales go further. The colonists, they say, did not just survive, they transformed. They became part of the land. The marshes, the forests, shadows among the fog. Their footsteps are said to echo on paths that were never trodden. And if you stand in the right place at the right time, the whispers might reach you. White left the island. His records tell only of absence. But the people who lived near Roanoke, generations of fishermen, farmers, and storytellers, remember differently. They remember the lights, the voices, the word. And in those stories, the colony never truly vanished. It lingers, watching, waiting, whispering. The mystery stretches from the dunes to the forests, from the abandoned fort to the water surrounding the island. Every artifact, every story, every word carved in wood carries the echo of a people who stepped into the unknown. CROATOAN, a clue, a warning, a spell. The colonists may have vanished from view, but their presence remained, stitched into the land, the folklore, the memory of those who survived nearby. And so the story of Roanoke continues, not just in history books, but in the shadows of the Outer Banks, in the lights over the dunes, in whispers along the marshes, in every telling of a word that may hold more power than anyone can fully understand. The lost colony of Roanoke was never really gone, at least not in the stories people tell. In the decades after 1590, as the Outer Banks grew, the island remained a place where the ordinary and the unexplained seemed to intersect. Locals began to speak of strange lights at night, lanterns hovering over the dunes, moving as if carried by unseen hands. Fishermen claimed that sometimes when the fog rolled in thick from the ocean, they could hear voices, soft English voices calling names long forgotten. Some spoke of Virginia Dare herself, appearing as a pale, silent child along the marshes, watching, waiting, disappearing when approached. There are whispers of the settlers' survival, not just through relocation, but through assimilation with native tribes. CROATOAN Island, just south of the abandoned colony, was home to a friendly tribe. Some legends suggest the settlers were taken in, married, and lived among them. Others say they survived in the wilderness, learning from the land, and eventually vanished into the mists of time, leaving traces in the forests, the rivers, and in the stories of those who came after. Yet darker stories persist. Folklore hints at strange rituals and eerie encounters. One tale tells of a woman, now in her late years, recalling a night when she was 20. She and her husband were traveling along the coast when they stumbled upon a figure, pale, tall, with eyes that seemed to glow in the moonlight. He whispered words in English, words that chilled her to the bone. She would not forget them. CROATOAN. Some legends speak of settlers who turned to strange practices in their desperation to survive. Accounts hint at individuals drinking from strange sources, not always water, not always food, a kind of blood perhaps, to endure the harsh isolation. It's impossible to know if these stories were based in reality or if fear and imagination transformed survival into something sinister. But the stories endured, passed from one generation to the next, whispered around fires on dark nights, warning travelers, intriguing storytellers, haunting the imagination. Artifacts, fragments, and traces suggest survival, but they tell only a partial story. Pieces of pottery, tools, and weapons hint at adaptation and endurance. But the human element, the fears, the alliances, the losses, remain invisible to archaeologists. What records exist come from outside observers, secondhand reports, or oral traditions shaped by time. And folklore, perhaps the most compelling record of all, insists that something extraordinary happened here, something the written record cannot fully contain. Some tales even suggest that the word CROATOAN carries a power of its own. In whispers, it is said to call the lost near or push them away. Children are often said to repeat the word without understanding it, as if memory flows from a time before them. The very land seems to respond to it. Fog thickens, wind shifts, the ocean hushes. And then there are the shadow sightings, fleeting glimpses of figures in the forest, moving too quickly to be human. They are pale, sometimes carrying faint implements, sometimes simply walking, as if retracing the steps of lives once lived here. Some describe a sense of recognition, a feeling that the lost colony watches those who walk the land, that the settlers' presence has not faded, but has become part of the island itself. Through it all, the mystery remains. Who were these settlers? Did they truly vanish, or did they survive in ways history cannot record? Did they leave descendants who still live among us, carrying the memory of that single word carved in wood? CROATOAN? Roanoke is more than history. It is legend. It is shadow. It is whispered memory. And every telling, every retelling, keeps the story alive. A story of hope, disappearance, survival, and perhaps of a lingering presence that refuses to be forgotten. The lost colony's mystery stretches beyond the pages of history books. It lives in the Outer Banks, in fog and shadow, in stories passed down through generations. And as we listen, as we tell the story, the word carved into a post centuries ago still calls out. A name, a clue, a key to the unexplained. CROATOAN. Centuries have passed since Roanoke vanished, yet the island's story never quieted. The settlers' disappearance became a puzzle historians struggle with, a riddle the land itself seems to guard. But alongside the historical records, local folklore and modern accounts paint a far stranger picture, one filled with whispers, sightings, and an unsettling sense of lingering presence. Some say the colonists survived by joining the CROATOAN tribe. Archaeologists found fragments of European tools, pottery and jewelry intermixed with native artifacts on nearby Hatteras Island. Oral traditions from the region speak of pale strangers, their speech broken, their customs odd, living among the natives. Some were said to disappear without warning, vanishing into the marshes or forests as if the land itself claimed them. Then there are the stories that chill the imagination. Fishermen wandering the fog-heavy waters of the Outer Banks have reported seeing figures along the dunes, watching silently before melting into the mist. Travelers speak of whispers carried on the wind, phrases in English that should not exist here, echoing names and warnings. Children long after the disappearance would repeat the word carved into that fateful post. CROATOAN, often without understanding its origin, as though memory had passed through time itself. Some legends push beyond survival into the uncanny. One tale tells of a woman in her twilight years, recounting an encounter in her 20s. She and her husband had been traveling along the coastline when a figure approached. Pale, tall, with eyes that seemed to gleam in the moonlight. He whispered words that froze her blood. CROATOAN. No one could explain it. She never forgot that night. Some say he was one of the lost colonists, somehow surviving through means that defied reason. Other tales suggest the settlers, desperate and isolated, turn to survival methods the mind struggles to comprehend. Stories mention strange rituals, peculiar consumption habits, even blood in ways that hint at the supernatural. These accounts are fragmentary, whispered, and often contradictory, but they endure. They suggest a people caught between survival and transformation, between history and legend, reality and folklore. Over the years, explorers, historians, and folklorists collected reports of ghostly lights on the beaches, voices carried on wind, and shadows moving among foggy trees. Some accounts speak of spectral children, silent and pale, watching from the marshes. Others describe figures seen only in fleeting glimpses, moving as if retracing lives long past. The island itself seems alive with memory. In modern times, the word CROATOAN has seeped into culture, appearing in fiction, television, and horror narratives. A symbol of unexplained disappearance, a trigger for fear and fascination. But long before fiction borrowed the term, local legends had already treated it as something more. A word of power, a key, a signal from a world that straddles life and shadow. The mystery of Roanoke persists because it exists on multiple layers. There is the historical, tangible layer, the records, the artifacts, the known movements of people. Then there is the folkloric layer, the whispers, the shadows, the sightings, the persistent legend of pale children and strange lights. And there is the psychological layer, the human response to vanishing, to loss, to a community erased. These layers intertwine, creating a story that refuses to remain buried. As we trace the history of Roanoke, as we listen to the whispers of local legend, the line between fact and folklore begins to blur. The settlers may have vanished from view, but in the marshes, in the fog, in stories passed down over centuries, they endure. They are watched, remembered, and feared. The legacy of Roanoke is not only absence, it is presence. It is a shadow that stretches across time. Every visitor to the Outer Banks feels it. A chill in the night air, a glance into the fog, a whisper carried on the wind. And in every telling, in every recounting, the carved word remains. CROATOAN, a mystery that begins in absence, that lives in story, that refuses to be forgotten. The centuries have passed, but Roanoke Island has never truly let go of its story. Every visitor, every local, every whisper on the wind keeps the mystery alive. The colony vanished in 1590, yet it left traces, carved letters, fragments of life, and the echo of a single word: CROATOAN. The theories are many. Some believe the settlers moved south, joining the CROATOAN tribe, blending into native communities, leaving behind only whispers of their existence. Others claim they perished by disease, famine, or conflict, and that the stories of sightings and ghostly children are echoes of imagination, grief, and memory. But the legends persist, and they are rich with detail. People report pale figures walking the marshes at night, children repeating the word CROATOAN without understanding its origin, lanterns hovering over dunes, disappearing before a hand can reach them, shadowy forms in the forests, moving with purpose, watching as if retracing the paths of those who once lived here. Then there are the more intimate stories, the encounters that defy simple explanation. Elderly residents recount moments from their youth, a figure appearing on a foggy road, whispering words in English long forgotten, or the pale children glimpsed near rivers, vanishing into mist. Even generations later, these stories are passed down, retold and transformed, each adding layers to the enduring mystery. Archaeological finds give hints, yet no clear answers. Pieces of pottery, fragments of tools, traces of the English and native settlements, evidence of life, adaptation, survival. But they tell only part of the story. They cannot explain the whispers, the shadows, or the enduring fascination with a colony that disappeared without a trace. The word carved into that post, CROATOAN, has become more than a clue. It is a symbol, a portal to speculation, a marker of human curiosity and the unknown. It reminds us that some mysteries do not resolve, that absence can echo louder than presence, and that some histories remain suspended between fact and legend. In the end, the lost colony of Roanoke is not just a historical puzzle. It is a story of hope, of survival, of disappearance, and of imagination. It is a place where history and folklore converge, where shadows linger longer than light, and where the whispers of those who vanished continue to call across the centuries. The settlers may be gone, but the story, the mystery, the legends, the word remains. And so we remember, we tell, and we listen, knowing that some mysteries are meant to endure. CROATOAN, the lost colony lives on, in the sand, in the mist, in every telling. Thank you for listening to Archive Vault Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive and found it insightful. Wishing you a great week ahead, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. We'll be back soon with more stories from the archives. See you next time.